Hey, welcome to Beyond the Message, where we're continuing our discussion on week 4 of Unoffended. This week, John, we closed out the series, and I think Pastor closed it out, literally the old saying, he closed out with a bang. Well, great challenge in this week for all of us in being able to take a good look at our lives and let go of the offenses that we have. And I think that's the key phrase is let go. It's a conscious decision.
It is, but how many people, when we were listening to the message, we're thinking of Frozen analysis singing "Let It Go"?
Yeah,
let it go.
Exactly.
I know that's what my daughter was thinking.
Yes, and I'm not allowed to watch that movie because I tried to sing it, and my wife ran me out of the room. So, not a singer, but I think letting things go. Proverbs 19:11 says, sensible people control their temper. They can earn respect by overlooking wrongs. Letting things go is overlooking wrongs. But why is overlooking wrongs such a rare quality in today's society?
Not to sound like we are on repeat week after week, but I think some of this is reflective of our culture. Mm-hmm. Whether it's cable news, whether it's podcasts, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, it is all about the rage. Mm-hmm. And it is, hey, I'm offended, therefore you should be offended. And if you're not offended, you are not a friend. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And therein lies the problem. And because that is what we see, that's what we hear on repeat in whatever news or whatever thing that you are seeing, every sitcom, everything is built around the conflict that it becomes so countercultural to say, no, I can overlook the wrong and still extend the grace.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think talk radio was one of the worst inventions ever. And if you like it, that's for you. But what talk radio is whoever yells the loudest, the longest wins.
Yes.
And I have to get my opinion out. I need to scream louder than you. We talked, I think it was in week 1, we talked about this series could not have been preached last year in a presidential election because Democrats hate Republicans. Republicans hate Democrats. Well, they're going to hell because they believe this. Well, they're going to hell because it's like, stop, and so it's just this rhetoric of arguing for arguing's sake. And what happens is Hollywood, talk radio, social media has taught us I have to get my opinion out there. Yes. Instead of being a sensible person. One of my favorite proverbs is a fool literally says a fool only cares about his opinion. I mean, to me, that's the definition of some of these podcasts that are out there and talk radio is I have to get my opinion. You have to listen to me because I'm right. And so it's just a rare quality to overlook wrongs because we've been told this is what you do. You fight back. You don't take it. If they punch you, punch them harder.
But think about how that proverb even begins. Sensible people control their temper. Uh-huh. It is about I think it was last week you were talking about we can either be the thermometer
right
or the thermostat. Uh-huh. Yes, being that God is that, and if we will press into Him, we don't have to always respond and we don't always have to react. Mm-hmm. And the only way that works is to remember sensible people control. So we can turn it down and to realize just because everyone else says not just react, but overreact.
Right.
Doesn't mean that's what we have to. Romans 12 would say, do not be conformed to the pattern of this world. What's the pattern of the world? Rage, outrage,
yes,
anger. Mm-hmm. Do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed. How? By the renewing of your mind.
Yeah. It's taking control and deciding, do I really want to be angry? So as Pastor was talking about Joseph's story, forgiveness often feels like a gift to the other person. But Joseph's story clearly showed us his forgiveness before his brothers even asked for it, freed him. So how does forgiving somebody actually free us?
I think of forgiveness as a gift, just like you asked, but I think it's a gift to yourself. Mm-hmm. I really do, because I think in week one, we talked about anger and offense being like a weight that we carry around.
Yes.
And forgiveness is saying that I will choose to let go of the weight, even if you do not say, I'm sorry I caused you to pick it up, or I'm sorry for what I did that caused you to pick it up. So forgiveness is saying, I am not going to let what you did control me in my future. Probably the verse I've quoted more times in my life, both to myself, I've prayed it over my kids, it would be Proverbs 4:23, which says, above all else, guard your heart.
Yep.
For out of it flows all the issues of life. So I can choose to give you a gift. Doesn't mean you have to open it.
Right.
That's on you.
Right.
But I can also choose to give myself a gift to protect my heart.
Yeah.
And to make sure I'm not going to let what happened control me, because I don't want it to impact not just my life, but those others that are in my life.
Yeah, because it's a choice.
It is.
I mean, you can be angry or you can be joyful. And anger requires so much energy. And, Jesus said, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. This anger comes from someplace. And according to Jesus, who I think knows everything, it comes from our heart. Is this what I want in my heart?
Yeah.
And the idea is, well, if I just get this anger out, it'll empty my heart of all that anger. But that's not the way it works. No. The more you lean into anger, the more anger you have. Anger produces anger. It's a downward spiral into darkness. And so, but if you choose joy is this constant state. It's there. And how do I want to respond? Do I really want to use this much energy? Now, again, we've talked before about be angry and what?
Do not sin.
Do not sin. So there is a place for anger.
Yes.
But it is a godly anger. It is a restrained anger. It's a gracious and merciful and humble anger. And so it comes out of joy, in wanting to help someone.
Yeah. The other thing I become at least aware of is that Jesus said, even in the Lord's Prayer, that Father, forgive us as we forgive those. So in one sense, when we choose to forgive, it is recognizing God didn't have to forgive us.
Right.
He chose to. And just because someone hasn't come to ask for forgiveness doesn't mean that I can't act like in a Godward, in a Christ-like way, and go ahead and forgive you, to say, I'm not going to let this have rule in my life anymore.
Yeah, well, that kind of brings us to our last question, because what you're talking about is setting boundaries. I'm not going to let this person impact me. I'm not going to let this attitude or this treatment. It's not going to. So what does it look like to set a healthy boundary and yet still choose to not be offended at everything?
Okay, so maybe the best way I can answer this is to tell them myself. Both my kids play soccer. They play competitive soccer. And I guess I'm a glutton for punishment because I ref soccer. Okay, so when it's really hot out, they're playing 11v11. So you've got 22 players on the field and me as a ref. We will call a water break. Now, in competitive soccer, you can come up to the sideline, but all 22 players have to stay on the field. That way you know who the 22 that are on. Think of that in terms of this boundary line. So I can go up. I can interact with the people who are not on the field, but that doesn't mean those that are off the field can now come on and control anything or speak into it.
Yeah.
In one sense, it allows us to be able to say, hey, I can go to even work, and you and I can have a cordial relationship. We can have a friendly relationship. That doesn't mean that I've got to invite you into the Friday or the Saturday evening.
Exactly.
I can go, no, there's a boundary here. And I think the problem we have with boundaries is we think our mindset is it's hurtful. And I believe God's given us boundaries to be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like to think of boundaries as a traffic light. Have you ever seen somebody run a traffic light when everybody else is using their green light? It is a bad thing. I mean,
It's bad.
Bad things happen. And so if you don't set up boundaries, you're putting yourself out there where the person who continually hurts you, continually offends you, you're putting yourself out there and just saying, hey, I'm a punching bag, take your best shot. And I don't think that's what God has called us to be. Now, if somebody comes at me and they're taking a cheap shot at me, the Bible does say, turn the other cheek. But I do think we can set boundaries. Say, every time I encounter this person, this is what happens. And if I see them, there have been people I've had to set up boundaries. And I run into them at Walmart and we'll talk to them. And I remember one person in particular, every time I'd see them, there was one issue, a decision I made they didn't like. As a pastor, they hated that I made this decision. And every time they'd say, oh, how's Shirley? How's William? Man, we miss you, but you sure made a bad decision. And my wife says, you saw me in Walmart. Why didn't you just walk the other way? And I said, because I don't want to be that guy. I said, so I set a boundary that I don't call them. But as soon as they start talking about that, the last time I said, you understand that was 7 years ago. The mere fact that you're holding on to this isn't good. And I just said, God, look, if this is what it's going to be, I'm setting up this boundary and maybe you protect me from seeing them. But if I do, I want to be kind because the Bible says while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. He didn't wait for us to get our act together to forgive us. And that's what Joseph did with his brothers.
Absolutely.
So if I can, like we talked about in the previous question, if I can forgive others before they ask for it, I'm free and living in joy. But it also allows me to set up a boundary that what they feel about me is not going to impact me every day. And if I have a chance to show that kindness to them again, I will, because I can't. I've lost count somewhere about more than 100 billion times. God's been gracious to me when I didn't deserve it.
Yeah, maybe this will help those who are watching in our community groups and those who have found this on the app. But think about your house. Okay, so I have a house. We own a home. I've got neighbors though. Okay, so in our front yard, I can see all the way around the block. I can see everyone's driveway, everyone's yard. We know what it looks like. I can interact with neighbors. And yet, if you go to the backyard, I've got a 6.5-foot fence that I love all around my house. So I've got it on 3 sides of my backyard. I have the same neighbors that I just talked to in the front yard. But we also have a boundary in the backyard.
Right.
And I think that can be a helpful way for us to realize that there are moments where it is not just okay, it is good to have boundaries.
Yeah.
And it allows the family moments to be family, but it also allows the heart. If you think about that same way about protecting your heart, it allows you to go, no, there are moments where I can't be so closed off maybe at work. I can set up a healthy boundary to protect the heart at home or in other circumstances.
Yeah, it is. I like it, there's a place for privacy. There's a place for boundaries. And I would caution you with this because some of you in group or watching this on the app, you're thinking, oh, I can go tell my friend or this person has upset me that I'm creating a boundary because you're just too toxic of a person. First of all, don't be passive aggressive. That's not what we're talking about. The boundary is to help you live in the joy of the Lord, to protect your heart, to guard your heart so that you can live in joy. And so a boundary is just that. It is a protection. It is not a weapon to use. And if you have set up a boundary with someone, and we're not talking, there are people who've set up boundaries because of physical and sexual abuse. We're talking everyday relationships. Yes. If you run into them, you should be able to have already forgiven them as Joseph did his brothers. And when you see them, you live out of that forgiveness, regardless whether they ever ask for it or not.
Such a helpful word.
Yeah. So below, there'll be a few questions down there. And then also there's going to be steps that you can take to live an unoffended life. Go out and try those things this week. Practice them. In fact, I would encourage you, get a journal and write down the first step that you're to take and then journal how it goes. Then take the next one and journal that and just start keeping up with those and seeing, hey, look how this is changing my life and how I am now living an unoffended life.